Maybe. Are we live, Jason?
I just showed up, so you tell me. I mean, I'm just here to talk about.
I started the stream,
Yeah.
and everything was going, and then it wasn't. So, and I look online, and it said the stream lasted for 1 minute and like 5 seconds. So I just turned it back on. We'll see if people find it. But it's
Elf Liberation Front. Elf Liberation Front. Get Santa. We got him.
It is not cooperating. The YouTube and the Melon, they're just not getting along at all. And I was here talking to folks. Hey, I'm back. We've got people here.
People are talking.
Look at that. So I was just making the changes here in the old YouTube studio. I was
we call it the studio because we're real men here. Real men.
Oh my goodness. I was sharing with folks what I've been doing on the old jingle ring.
Okay.
And let me see if I can share again. We'll try one more time because I think it's fun. And then I looked and I saw, hey, nobody's here. Everything's dead. What's going on? And then come to find out it had died. So let me share my screen and see if this will work this time.
Don't break it again, though.
I need to delete the first. Yeah, it's 1 minute long. Yeah, I'll delete that after the stream. Baymax, thank you for that. I don't know what happened there, but I was
1 minute show. That's classic Santa.
Yeah, intro. It's like 1 minute and 5 seconds. I think it says. Yeah, it was. 1 minute 5 seconds. The intro is that long.
Hey, so come on, buddy. This is the audience, not Mrs. Claus. You got to go longer than that. I got you.
So. Yeah, RF Gaming says the last one glitched out at the end of the countdown and then gone. So
because it's big LFL, dude. They're trying to keep you down because you're bringing the information to the people, and they know that, and they're trying to stop you. But no, we're not going to lay down and take it.
But YouTube's making me crazy. So I was just sharing this, and you guys, you could do all of us a huge favor because I mentioned last month. YouTube has a minimum payout. Like you meet all the monetization, you have all the subscribers, you got all the stuff, right? But if you don't get the minimum monetization, they send you no check, right? Send you no deposit, no money for you. Last month, I made it by less than $2.
Yeah,
less than $2.
Right.
It was like $1.70.
Someone wants to go to Outback Steakhouse, Google AdSense. What the heck? Come on.
I made it by $1.70. And AdSense revenue just barely got me over the line. So AdSense revenue comes if you guys share, you watch, you share it, you let folks know what's going on here, give it a like. The interactions in the chat make all the difference in the world. So there's all that kind of stuff that you guys can do to help make sure that this channel is supported.
If you like Santa Claus, type 1 in the chat. If you love Santa Claus, type 2. There we go.
Hey,
interaction.
I see my friend Darth Elvis is in the building.
Hey, baby.
Hey,
yesterday I talked a lot of crap on Elvis, and I thought about Darth Elvis, and I felt bad because I like Darth Elvis.
You should feel bad. Yeah, because Elvis, the king of rock and roll.
Yeah, and he was a narc for Nixon. That's not rock and roll. It's the opposite of rock and roll. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Hey,
narking. Yes. No, the narking part's not on there. That's not on there.
I have an exclusive photo of Darth Elvis that's on my wall.
Yeah.
That is not safe for public consumption.
That was with his Sith master Darth Cheeks, right?
That's exactly it.
He's the apprentice. Darth Elvis is the apprentice. Darth.
Yeah. Exactly. So so you guys can help the channel a lot that way, and you guys, the whole virtual Santa Claus. I do virtual Santa Claus visits with people all over the country, even outside the United States, And if you are interested in scheduling a visit with me, you go to this website. It's Jingle Ring. In Jingle Ring, you can see, look, there's an ad right here at the top. Watch this. You see, it opens up with this little girl. She's so excited to get to see Santa, and her mom is there. They're like, "Oh my goodness, can you believe it? It's Santa!" And guess who's Santa? Guess who?
Darth Elvis?
No. Oh, it's
What?
me. It's
you!
me. It's me.
I know that guy.
And then they show some other Santas here.
Wait, what are these knockoffs? Get out of here.
Yeah. You can see some of these other folks. They do Santa stuff as well.
I get it though. You can't be everywhere at once, so you got to hire like these.
You got to have help,
like come and like stand in for you, like Black Santa and stuff like that. So that way,
yeah.
And then you do the real thing on Chris. I get it though.
Yeah, you gotta have lots of help. Lots of help. Yeah. There's lots of kids.
Oh, there's a real Santa.
There's me again.
There's the real one.
Oh, that's me again. So that's sort of what the experience looks like, and you can come choose your clause. And if you scroll down, you can see 6 days, 9 hours, and 16 minutes until you can schedule your virtual Santa Claus visits with me, or some other helper if you want. But look, there's me again.
There you are.
So
look at you. Look at you. Like telling the elves, don't say anything if you want to exist. You're a magical creature that I conjured.
There you go. So there's the website. There's how you do it. And just next week, this time next week, they'll be open for scheduling, and you can get those scheduled. So
I like where Jimmy's mind's at. It's like me talking trash on the other Santas is going to make you all this real life grief in the Santa world, and it's the Claus Wars. Gun the Claus Wars has. So, sorry if I brought down.
Well,
no, the other Santas are here to get me.
I sent them after you. I got a question for Darth Elvis. Priscilla, the movie, is out today. Are you going to see Priscilla this weekend, Darth Elvis?
I'm going to see it.
Are you?
I got all of them. I think Sophia Coppola's very talented filmmaker. So I'm not interested in Elvis, but I'm interested in Sophia Coppola. So I like her film.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, look, Rob's in the chat. Says telling the elves they got to be in office 5 days a week while Jenga pings his second condo in Gatlinburg.
Yep.
I do frequent Gatlinburg from time to time, and Rob knows that. That's why he's picking on me that way.
I never heard of the word Gatlinburg one time in my life, and then you said it, and you opened up the Matrix files on that, and now I hear Gatlinburg all the time randomly. I'm just like, what is Gatlinburg?
Look, it's a big destination
next to Duckburg.
Look, it used to be folks would go vacation in Orlando, around here, Central Ohio. There's a lot of Midwesterners would go to Orlando, and all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, there's a big tectonic shift, and the whole continent shifted, and everybody now goes to Gatlinburg. It's weird. Like I'll go to the shop, get the oil changed on the car, right? Get the tires changed, whatever. The manager will be in Gatlinburg. Oh, the manager's not here today. He's in Gatlinburg. What? Right. I have Bible study. Somebody shows up and says, "Oh, we just came back from vacation. We went to Gatlinburg." Right. It's just the place. It's
Gatlinburg.
I'm telling you, it's a big place.
I don't know what it even is. I just imagine it's like if Disneyland and a truck stop had a baby. That's in my mind. That's just what I imagine it as. I don't know why.
What about Branson, Missouri? You got an image in your head of Branson, Missouri?
No, I don't. I didn't even know that was a real place.
So Branson, Missouri. Gatlinburg's like Branson's cousin.
Oh, cool. I don't even know what that means. Cool though.
Well, you've got the Appalachian Mountains over on east, and then in the middle of the country you've got oh shoot, what is that? The mountain range there that they're in. They're cousins. They're both in mountains. They're both kind of southern. They're both kind of got the same places. You've got Dolly Parton kind of experiences at both. You've got all these shows.
So it's like a dyad of boobs?
Attractions.
That's what I'm getting out of that, a dyad.
Titanic Museum, just different things. Yeah. So so there's that. The last
wait, hold on, I gotta roll it back here. You see, there's a Titanic Museum.
Yeah, there's two of them. There's one in Gatlinburg.
Why do they get the rights to have the Titanic Museum in Gatlinburg
and Branson?
Why?
And they've got this huge. It looks just like the Titanic that you walk into.
I can't just go and be like, I'm going to make the Las Vegas Museum or something and put it like in like the Titanic. Like, what about the location and the Titanic? What's the connection?
Because some dude wanted to open a museum.
I know what it is. I get it. Dolly Parton, Titanic.
No.
It makes sense.
No. But they've actually got pieces that were brought up from the shipwreck there, as well as records of everything, photos, and you could there's different experiences in there. The grand ball case.
Speaking of experiences, I was having this idea that maybe like we could get into a little sub together and go to the Titanic. Want to come with me? Okay.
All right. Nope. The last bit of self kind of selling here is our Patreon, right?
Patreon.
On Patreon. Yeah. There's been if you guys haven't noticed, there's been a little trickle of Star Wars news out there, which leads to a lot of speculation and nonsense. But we're going to cover the news plus the speculation and nonsense. But I have been making Star Wars content every single day, posting it on Patreon every single day.
Really getting by with this AdSense nonsense.
Yeah,
doing it
exactly. And Patreon has got you can see here tomorrow. You're going to get Outcast chapter 17, and then 18, 19, 20, all the way through. I've gotten chapter 25 recorded, all the way through November 12th. There's going to be daily content every single day. You can see 5 hours ago, chapter 16 was posted, and you can go all the way back. The last couple of weeks, we have been since October 19th posting every single day on Patreon. So come join over on Patreon. You can see Patreon has a new feature called collections, and in the collections, you can see.
I'll pay my student loans. Just leave me alone.
You can see there. I went through Darth Plagueis, Thrawn Alliances, Thrawn Treason, and now we're doing Outcast, and we're going to keep going. There's 9 books in the Fate of the Jedi series. We're going to go through all 9 of them between now and probably the next time you get a Disney Plus Star Wars content.
Wow, that's a lot.
So like every day, it's my goal. I can't guarantee every single day, but more days than not, you'll get brand new Star Wars content over on our Patreon. How about that?
That's good.
Trying to make it worth your while, and you could do it for $1. It's not like it costs Kenobi money, It's just $1. That's all.
$1.
And I'm not raising my monthly fee like Netflix does either.
Yeah.
And
Bespin Bulletin.
Hey, speaking of Bespin Bulletin, I hear if you mention his name like 12 times, he'll actually show up on your show.
Really?
No, I don't know.
I was wondering what the trick was because it's just kind of random.
I thought that's how you got him on there yesterday.
Yeah, no, that was just random. I think he got lost. I think he was trying to get on Reddit and he just ended up on my show. So,
speaking of Reddit, there is a Star Wars news Reddit that is used by some of your favorite content creators and trustworthy news sources like the old Bespin of bulletins. Right here, his last story came from November 2nd to just yesterday. Yesterday he posted this, and you covered it on your show. There's the Acolyte Writers. Now this was the first I saw it was a news story that said exclusive Acolyte Writers revealed, but then Bespin said, "No, dog, that's just like industry stuff, and they got it from a publication."
From a publication, and it was already being shared around. So it's the whole fake it till you make it angle.
Yeah. So he gave the list here. So that I'm using Bespin's coverage of it rather than the one that said exclusive.
Well, I mean, even when you look at the other trash one, his actually explains to you who the writers are, what they've done. The other one is just like, oh, let's just rush to try to, steal the story and pretend like it was an exclusive.
We copied the story and posted it first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whatever.
We saw Reddit first. We saw Reddit before that. So
this is it says the next live action, one of the next the Acolyte is gearing up for its release. And as you talked about, look, there were lots of rumors that said this show was never made. All they did was make a teaser for it. It never got greenlit. It never got produced. It never got filmed. They only did a trailer, sort of like the video games, And
it was so bad they didn't make it, and then they owed the taxes on it.
They make a theatrical release of video games, right? And it's this fantastic thing, and then the video game never comes out. That happens. That's a thing.
Sure.
But that's not the case here.
But that was like because they know that Zaslav did it one time. They're like, oh well, that's what happened then. That happened to Batgirl. Happened to Acolyte. Go broke, bro. It's like no, not in this instance.
No. So
they filmed for over 8 months. It was a real show.
And now that the Writers Guild are back on the job, they can start releasing writing credits and so on. Says here he's asking, hey, you could come support him on Patreon. Patreon's a great place. Meg has a great Patreon. She posted an exclusive live stream.
Where you at, Meg? Get on here.
She posted an exclusive live stream last weekend. You have a Patreon. I have a Patreon. Bespin has a Patreon. You can support Bespin on Patreon. It's one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, or give us your money, and my magical friend here might come through your chimney and teach you a lesson.
You could send it on Ko-Fi as well. But so do that. Support the Bespin of bulletins.
Give us a bag of money and put a little cup of milk and some cookies next to it if you know what's good for you.
But Robert St. Clair is not wrong. Gatlinburg does have a moonshine tourism business.
Now it all makes sense. You guys just want the moonshine. Okay.
You can go down there and go on a moonshine tour. There's a whole thing. Yeah.
So it really is a truck stop Disneyland. Got
it. But we have Santa Claus conventions there every other year. Okay. That's why I go. But it says episode 1.
Have you ever seen two Santas get into a fist fight?
No.
Okay. If you do, you got to call me immediately.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will.
File that one under do that if that happens.
This isn't like the Santa Claus thing they do in like New York City where they all get smashed drunk and partying on the street.
You guys have real knives and blades and it's really life or death.
No, we're like professional Santa Clauses who take the craft very seriously and want to perform as professional Santas.
You know what that means, though? It means you guys got to get together and go to New York and fight those guys.
Yes. Yes. Let's see. Gatlinburg's history of harboring Confederate soldiers during the Civil War. So Wired, hoarding enough Titanic wreckage to make British. Yeah. Rob is lighting up the chat. Good job. So episode 1 of The Acolyte was written by the series creator Leslie Headland. And then episode 2 says was penned by Jason Milcalif and
Milk cow.
Charmaine DeGrasse. Milcalf
On my show, I was like, Derate. Is it? I don't know. I actually don't know. I'm just kind of wondering.
I don't know. It says three.
Call us. Let us know, and then tell us some spoilers too.
It says Milcalf began. It says having only 3 release projects since 2011, began with the feature of Butter. He likes butter. Starring Jennifer Garner and Hugh Jackman. So that counts. Jennifer Garner and Hugh Jackman. Those are A-listers. In addition, he penned the short film Marcel. Not to be confused with Marcel the Shell, but Marcel. And most recently, Heathers, Paramount series he created, ran for a season in 2018. However,
he's a failure. Therefore, the show sucks.
He is paired with Charmaine DeGrasse. Right? Charmaine.
Yeah, that was kind of what we worked out when Bespin showed up. I think in our conversation is that you have sort of a junior and a senior writer. It looks like paired. So it looks like you have like your very experienced writer with your journeyman, potentially journeyman level kind of writer kind of thing situation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Charmaine, 10 episodes of the HBO series Game of Thrones, House of Dragon. 10 episodes of House of Dragon. Hey, I see Chillmonger in the chat. Reminds me, tomorrow night, Eastern time, wherever that is for you guys, Chillmonger's planning a stream I'm going to try to go participate in over on his channel. We're going to talk about the best dads in Star Wars.
The best dads in Star Wars?
Yeah, that's a pretty short list. I said it's the least of the worst dads in Star Wars. That's what it should be. Yeah. Who are the least of the worst bad dads in like there's no good, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, Galen was probably a good dad. He had a whole contingency plan for his daughter, and then he got kidnapped, but he was still like, he wanted to find her. So I don't know. I think Galen might get it just because he was in a rock and a hard place, but he still ends up kind of being the guy who made the Death Star. So
I made an argument for Uncle Owen, but he says he's disqualified because he's uncle.
Well, what about Klieg's the stepfather? And he was like, "Oh, you committed genocide? Hey, man, I hope you get with Natalie Portman. I wish I had my leg back." So he's up there.
Yeah, good. He said Galen's #1 seed. Yeah, but so I think Uncle Owen deserves to be on the list because he raised Luke, taught him some good work ethic. You got to put work ahead of play, and you got to get.
I don't know though, because people don't really love adopted kids. So,
well, then
sorry, I just wanted to make Rob cry a little.
Then
bit.
that excludes
adopted.
That excludes Bale. So that's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night over on Chillmonger.
Yeah, Bell Organa is sending his like 15-year-old daughter or 16-year-old daughter out on like secret missions and stuff. Now he's trying to get her killed. He doesn't want to be a dad anymore.
And we'll talk about Kenobi here in a minute. If you watch that show, you get some more insight on Bale too, and his parenting. Yeah. I mean, his daughter got kidnapped.
It turns out he didn't really die on Alderaan. He just bailed.
Oh,
see,
not good. Episode 3 is another team up: Jasmine Flournoy and Eileen Shim. It says Flournoy worked on Disney Marvel's The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which had some pretty good episodes. Not all of them were my favorite, but it wasn't bad. And
I don't watch that one, so I don't know.
Worked on Apple TV, Truth Be Told. Haven't watched that. Amazon's.
You're supposed to say, "Truth be told, I didn't watch that one," and then look at the camera for a long time.
And the God and Heathers created
another Heathers writer.
Yeah, with Jason and Eileen Shim.
Another Shim job in this one.
The Lord of Tides in House of Dragon. Shin worked on the animated series Mech Cadets and the Hulu series.
Bespin should have wrote "not to be confused with Prince of Tides," like he did in the other thing above. He should do that every time.
Come up with a not to be confused for everything.
Not to be confused.
Yeah.
Episode feather, thick as a board.
Episode 4 by Claire, who has
Kaichev.
Look, Watchmen. A lot of people loved Watchmen.
Watchmen, and that would be a connection to Lindelof.
And
Lindelof.
the OA. I watched part of the OA, and it's just not a show for me.
I watched OA, and I don't remember anything about it now. I just remember being like, it came back, and I was like, I don't care, and I don't remember what it was now. I just didn't.
It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And then episode 5.
Well, Mr. Robot. She did Mr. Robot. That's a very important up above. It talks about how they are, who previously worked on episodes of the critically acclaimed Mr. Robot, and that's like pretty encouraging. That's also how we got Deborah Chow, love her or hate her. At her point, I mean, the early Deborah Chow stuff is coming off Mr. Robot, and it's very good. And then the Kenobi stuff is a little bit more different. But
I haven't seen Mr. Robot, so I have no.
Highly recommend it. It's more in that Fight Club kind of vibe of a thing. So the movie Fight Club, where it's like psychological. I
didn't watch that either. Okay,
well, he's schizophrenic. He's a schizophrenic hacker.
Oh,
and he doesn't know if he's like destroying the world or if he's just hallucinating that he was doing it and stuff like that. It's pretty weird. It's pretty good. And Christian Slater's in it, and he's very good in it. Not unlike Willow, he's good in that one. Not unlike Willow.
Okay. You remind me of another show we watched. It was basically the story of Thor, but it's
it's like modern Thor with like and it's from Norway or something, right? Yeah. I liked it. It's not like it's a bit teen level, I'd say, but it's entertaining.
The ending of it, you realize the whole thing was just a hallucination.
Oh, I didn't watch that far. Thanks for spoiling it, Santa.
Spoiler alert, Jason.
He was in Echo Park, and he bought some muffin, and he thought like it was just going to be a muffin, and it wasn't. And he thought he was Thor for a couple of days. I could identify. I thought I was in Egypt for a little bit, so it makes sense. Yes,
100%, just like that.
like Rob always says, they need to make more like life stories, like about the human condition, things we could like relate to.
Yeah.
And so, the store things making sense. Okay. Episode 5. Sorry to derail.
Episode 5, the aforementioned Core Adana.
Wait, aforementioned on 5? No, you don't aforemention on 5. You idiot. Bespin, you idiot. Learn how to count, you dummy. I'm sorry that happened on the show, you guys. I mean, I'll talk to him off the show about how stupid he is sometimes.
Dork Wars, the podcast. Welcome. Your first time here. Thank you. Appreciate it. Core Adana and Cameron Squires. Squires worked on the Netflix animated series Agent Elvis.
Squire's not as good as a Mexican strat. Don't care.
What is Agent Elvis? Darth Elvis. Did you voice Agent Elvis?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you should know everything, Darth Elvis. Tell us now.
Never heard
negotiations.
I've never heard of this Agent Elvis either.
It's probably about Elvis being a narc by the sound of it.
Matthew McConaughey. Going, all right. Squires penned 6 episodes. Squires worked on another animated series, Final Space, 14 episodes. And most notable project is WandaVision, which he worked on as staff writer.
Good show.
So very good. And then episode 6, Jason Milcalef again.
Jason Milk Cow.
Yeah. He also wrote the second episode, and this time it's joined with Jocelyn Bio. Bio is noted for Russian Doll. I watched Russian Doll. Have you watched that?
Yep. Russian Doll's good.
Pretty good show.
Feel a good little
and then he also and also worked on episode of the Hulu series Tiny Beautiful Things. I haven't seen that. Catherine Hahn, which is also in WandaVision, right?
Yeah.
Catherine Hahn.
Also in Step Brothers. Chapete standing up in that one is amazing. It's like,
okay.
She like walks right up to a urinal and just goes. It's so funny. That Step Brothers, I can watch it. I can watch it on repeat. I love that movie.
Wow.
It's so dumb. Okay. It's such a dumb movie.
Episode 7, written by 3 individuals.
Michael Arndt, J.J. Abrams,
Charmaine,
and,
Jasmine, and Jen,
Okay.
who's
Oh
also an
yeah,
actress.
really quickly, we should note that what people need to understand about the organization of this is that it was the show was done with a writer's room. They were at a table, so all of these people probably did contribute to the overall whole entirety of the series with a story by what's her face, what's her name? I'm drawing a blank on her name. The first Leslie Headland. And then so you got Leslie Headland, and then you have everybody there, and then they all break apart and be like, okay, the Christmas episode, we should put Brian on that one because he knows Christmas, and then that's like kind of how it everybody gets sort of jumbled around in there. So
Now, Rob, you got to get it right. Russian dolls are the nesting kind. They're not the nutcracker kind. They're the nesting kind. All right. You got to get it right. If you're gonna, you can't be mixing your. All right. So anyway, episode 7. There in the final episode is written by Jason again. He's who will be credited on each episode as a creator, along with Leslie Headland, the showrunner. So your point that you just made is where I wanted to go with it, because we see all of the writers listed. And you're like, wait, is this going to be disjointed because it doesn't have a single, writing thread going through it? I would say no. Leslie Headland, the showrunner, much like Jon Favreau, right, the showrunner for The Mandalorian, is managing the through story, in allowing the writers to flesh out each of the episodes along the way. So, what we don't yet see are the directors. Are they writer directors, or are they just writing and we get different directors? I don't have a clear view of that either. So, take it for what it is, right? It says the Acolyte, which is set during the High Republic era, follows a former Padawan and a Jedi Master. This is a story that you've talked about a long time ago, right? But encounter forces more sinister than what they imagined. The series stars Amandla. This is sort of just a rehash of what we already know, but it does also include some other High Republic era characters that you may know from reading the High Republic novels, if you're reading them, which leads to phase 3 is being released very soon. I've already started to see some reviews of the first book of phase 3 of that series, and I'm excited to be reading that soon as well. It says, correction, to be fair, Santa originally thought Russian Nesting Doll was a Nutcracker remake. He said the same thing. What?
You got called out on your own show.
I know. A Star Wars nesting doll in Prague. That's cool, Brett. I have a Russian nesting doll from Russia. Well, it's actually from Ukraine. So there's that. But and I use that nesting doll as part of my storytelling as Santa Claus.
I have Red Mercury from Russia. I'm gonna make a UFO with it. Sorry, go ahead.
What? So yeah, the Acolyte. It seems like it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be. It has the potential to be one of the best series from a Star Wars fandom perspective. That we have to get. Again, I say potential because you got to wait until you see it. There's a lot of negativity around Leslie Headland. And I think most of that's agenda-driven negativity, not based on any actual content. It's just based on a whole narrative that's going around that I have personally no interest in. And I've talked about this before, and you all know. Look, I'm a Republican. I'm as conservative Christian as you're going to find. In my own personal life and what I do and how my ministry that I have, that's where I am. But
and that makes it where you got to tell the truth. Oh man, are you serious?
No, but I'm not here just to to talk about that agenda.
Yeah.
Because I did that when I was younger, and I founded the College Republicans at the Ohio State University in Marion.
You monster.
I was very involved with the party, and I've been a contributor, financial supporter of the party. I've got plenty of opinions on that stuff, and which are diametrically opposed to this guy and Rob and Meg and Baymax, and all of you think I'm an idiot, but that's okay. We're still friends.
We're just crazy. It's totally different. It's totally different.
Same thing, but we're still friends, and because we're reasoned human beings, and I'm past that phase of my life where every show has to be about the agenda. I'm just past it. I've already done that in my life, and I just don't want to do it anymore. I am interested in the Acolyte, regardless of whatever Leslie Headland does in her personal life. And the same falls true, by the way, for folks like George Lucas, that I also disagree with vehemently, but from a political standpoint. And I don't have to care.
And an episode 1 standpoint.
Oh my goodness! Don't even get me started on the.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
But anyway, I'm excited about the Acolyte. We're going to get lightsabers. You're going to get Force. You're going to get mystery. You're going to get lots of, fantastic. I hope, characters that people will care about, and really that should drive the show.
Yeah,
and then everything else,
Okay, you don't have to answer this question if it's too much of a detour. We just skip it. But I was just thinking right now, in a way, isn't like the point of the Last Jedi about taking stuff from the past? Isn't that kind of conservative in a way? Philosophically, isn't that kind of like a very kind of conservative ethos to it? Does that make sense?
That's an interesting topic to sit and sketch out
over. Yeah,
because there's an interesting when I was in political science, studying political science at Ohio State.
Yeah.
When we talk about conservatives wanting to return to, a lot of conservatives want to return to a day gone past, right? They think back to their childhood or stories of, say, the 50s and this idyllic kind of American Pie.
Town Square America kind of thing.
Yeah. And without sliding down that ramp, the illustration was time moves forward, right? And so anytime it's still going to move forward. And the best you can do is kind of circle around, right? So you may be moving left or right along the way, but you can never go back up the timeline, right? Yeah. You can't, or down, whichever way you want to draw it, right? You can't go back the timeline. Things have moved forward. And so all you can do is within the culture you are in, adhere to the values that you believe in, and try to make an impact to those that you are with to that degree, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it's my faith and my values, and I adhere to those, and I try to have an influence in culture the best I can in my own life. And I'm not trying to drive backwards. So, it's moved forward, but in a conservative manner. I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble right now. I'm going to do it. There is an issue here in Ohio about abortion rights.
Okay.
Right. They want to put it into the Constitution for the state of Ohio to give abortion rights. I am vehemently opposed to it. I'm voting no all day, but because I have my own personal beliefs about abortion, and
it's your vote. You can vote how you feel.
That, right? Yeah. So, look, I care about that, and I do things because of what I care about. Will the bill pass or not? I don't know, but I hope that it goes my way. If it doesn't, I need to still continue in my own life around those things without getting into, fighting about abortion every day. It's just not going to help, because you typically don't change people's minds or attitudes by arguing. You do it because you have a relationship with somebody and they care about you, and you have a discussion, and you maybe raise some points that they hadn't considered, and this, you soften their hearts, don't harden their hearts, right? So enough of that nonsense. We got Star Wars to talk about. There's more. There's more. So Acolyte, I'm super excited about it, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I know there was another talk about, and we already talked about. No, we didn't. We didn't talk.
We didn't talk about it?
We didn't talk about the other thing. But there's another thing.
What did we miss?
We missed the other story.
Oh, man.
And look, that's on me. That's on me. It's about
I was gonna say it, but yeah, it is. I don't know where I am right now.
Crew.
Oh, Skeleton Crew.
You discussed this again earlier this week as well. What's the latest on the Skeleton Crew that's of interest this week? What's the new thing?
We got the planet name. It's like Adat Droidia or Adat Atonia or Adat Town or Adat Adataberg.
Right. It takes it from some crew merch, right? And the crew merch logo.
The crew gift.
Yeah. And it's like a jacket kind of thing. Yeah. And it's got a logo on it. And somebody broke down the Arabesh on it. And it gave the name of the academy. It's a different name than we've seen before. And just goes back.
A Tatsin or something like that. Yeah, a Tatsin, a Tato, a Tatsin. That's what I kept singing after I learned it. That's what it is. It's something like that. Yeah, it's a Tatin middle school gamma, is what it said.
Yeah.
A Tatin, a Tatsin.
Yeah, Tatin middle school gamma. And I saw Matt Risman was the first one that translated that I saw.
The Risman, the Kissman, give him a kiss.
But along with that, there was another short description of what the show is about, that the kids get involved in
drug dealing.
No, a mystery.
Meth.
Right? They find something.
It's mystery. It's always a mystery. It's a mystery thriller set in the Old Republic era.
When I heard it,
I
thought back to Goonies again, because this has been brought up. And the thing with Goonies was the map to whoever's like pirate ship.
Did you see when Bespin and I were talking about this?
Yes.
The other day?
Yes.
Like, there's a skeleton, a dead body on the ship, which is why they're called the Skeleton Crew. And then, so most likely they find an old derelict ship that is on their planet, and there's a dead body on there, and then they probably start playing in the ship, and then decide to take it on a ride.
Yeah,
that's the obvious circumstantial.
Exactly. So the kids are out, milling about, doing what things kids do, and they're like, "Oh, look, a crashed ship. Let's go explore." They go in the crash ship, come around the corner, skeletons. Wah! Right, and then get that off here. Oh, well, I wonder if it runs. I wonder, can we start it? Boom, let's take it for a ride. Next thing you know, havoc. Right.
And then like the thing that Bespin and I, when we were breaking it down that trailer too a while ago, is it looks like in the trailer that all the kids live together. When they're missing, they're not in their beds. Like the father gets up and he starts like looking, like flipping on lights kind of thing throughout like a hallway to like find where are they. They're not in their room. So it's like, so I still wonder too if these are like orphans of the Return of the Jedi War, basically, that time, and then that they are all going to this middle school and they lived in this orphanage, that kind of thing. It
could be an orphanage, but also with academies, a lot of them
could be private school, rich kids. Yeah. Ooh, I hate rich kids. I hope Balin kills them, honestly. Hope Balin's like, remember Order 66? People love Anakin for this. Star Wars theory will talk about you every day if you murder all of them. So he's like, that's how the series ends.
And there's again, I know your opinions, but there's a meme going through Thor Skywalker's channel as well, because every time this comes up, he also experiences a great deal of jubilation over the thought of younglings being killed. Right? His wife gives him a hard time about it. He's like, no, I think but it's a thing now. He just has to embrace it. But real quick, a side note. The number one question about Acolyte is, will Plagueis be in it, or some reference to Plagueis? The timeline lines up for maybe Darth Tenebris, perhaps Plagueis's master. The question,
in reality, like that for the old canon, that's how it would line up. But in terms of a new canon, we don't know what that is.
We don't, and all you have is the reference to. Have you ever heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise? Yeah, it's one that the Jedi would not tell you, right? So,
and then he killed him in his sleep. And the other thing about it is that
I got him drunk and then I chopped his head off. No,
yeah, I mean, but it's so Andor was a spy thriller. This is a mystery thriller. So both are in the thriller genre. So that's somewhere that tells us something about what the tone of the show will be. But it being a mystery and it talking about several different crimes in the I would guess the organization based off of that evidence would be 3 episodes is like one crime, which leads to the next crime, which leads to, oh my gosh, what is this? A Sith Lord? It wouldn't be like episode 1. So I'm Darth Plagueis. Hello, Amanda Stenberg. Do you wish to serve me? Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm betting against that pretty hard.
No, I'm not sure. And I do know Leslie Headland.
Let's call her Hesley from now on. Hesley.
Leslie Headland is a big like EU nerd, and she would be interested in bringing Plagueis or Tenebris into it. But
Leslie,
I just don't know.
Ever finds it ironic that Leslie's a lesbian? That is kind of ironic if you think about it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and I agree. If Plagueis is in it, he'll not be seen or teased until later, and or there'll be some adjacent kind of note to it, but he won't be part of the story. I don't think in any way he's going to be part of the story itself. If at all, he'll just be kind of adjacent to it. But we shall see. We shall see.
Well, because we know that there's the crimes going on, and but based off of that trailer, remember, like it appears it's Amanda Stenberg sneaking up on Carrie-Anne Moss to like kill her in a bar. I believe that happened in the trailer. Well, and so if it is what it looks like, then do we have a situation where the person investigating the crimes is the actual culprit? You know what I mean? Like that
would be a twist.
Yeah,
Or I don't know that
does she have a twin?
Does that kind of thing too much, but maybe.
Well, but remember, but we need to look at it as a genre piece first and foremost. So mystery thriller, and you know, so I don't know what to expect. I mean, for all I know, it might just be junk with no thought to it at all. But it doesn't. I don't think that'll be the case.
I know you're on a bit of a short time frame here, so I want to be able to cover a couple other things before you go, and then we can circle back after you go. And Rob, if Rob wants to jump in your place, that he's more than welcome to.
Yeah.
But says that maybe they trigger the launch. The kids. The one thing you need to remember is their teacher goes with them. So the teacher goes with them. Is that meaning that he is there researching this place with them, or find it, or something? I don't know.
No, I don't think so, because it turns out that the teacher was the code for the Jedi. So he's a Jedi. So I don't think he's like I think he becomes their he probably becomes their like teacher for how to contend with the world.
So one thing I really want to get your input on before you go, and we're down to just a couple minutes. Is this thing about the Kenobi budget was only 90 million, and like She-Hulk was like 225 million, and this is again kind of showing people, modeling some behavior. I googled Kenobi budget less than She-Hulk, right? And if you go down here, surprising show cost Marvel more money. It says cost Marvel Studios 225 million. Here's the rant. We'll just skip over that for now. Budget ballooned to 25 per million per. The budget. Let's see. it talks about this the CG costing it more money per hour of content. Costs more to make than Avengers movie.
It really is an elementary level comparison to make if you're trying to make a critique. It's actually really stupid.
And
because
you go through,
but look at Indiana Jones, man. They cost $330 maybe by some estimates, and the movie is $120 million looking movie at the end of the day. So just because funds, how they are spent, doesn't mean anything. It's a made up comparison to generate outrage. You could be mad about the look of Kenobi all you want, and it's valid. I'm no way taking that from anybody.
Yeah.
But to go and be like, well, She-Hulk cost that much. That's just like, it's not your sister getting a toy at Toys R Us when you're 5, buddy. It's the different story altogether. It's stupid.
And the narrative around She-Hulk is that the budget ballooned.
The narrative around She-Hulk is nobody watching it, hated it. It's like their biggest show of the year or something. So I don't watch it. So I think
the criticisms of Kenobi are valid. People have their complaints. That's fine. Yeah. But the question, and I posted it on Twitter, X, whatever, this morning, is the budget drive the story, or does the story drive the budget? Right? The show, the series.
Dude, sometimes
did somebody say
Kurt's not understanding inflation drives the budget?
Is it like Disney says you got $90 million, make it happen? Or is it, hey, we need a Kenobi series. How much is it going to take you to make it?
But once again, the number one, I don't know how even trustworthy that Kenobi budget number actually is. I don't remember what the original source of it was, so I'm not even going to die on a hill for that $90 million number. But the thing that people need to remember about Kenobi was, while it did cost, it was in the same range as all of the other Star Wars shows, but it was less episodes. The turnaround time was faster. The production timeline is a huge factor in the things that some people are mad about.
Yeah,
honestly, if it was made for a lot longer, if it did film for a few more months, the fight would have been better. Things would have been, you know what I mean? Would have been, the sets might have been more dynamic and stuff like that. But it's an apples and oranges kind of thing. It's ridiculous.
Just to break away from the comparison. Okay. Just to isolate down to Kenobi.
Yeah.
Is Kenobi limited by its budget, or did they spend whatever they spent and the budget happened to be what it was? Right? Did they say back to the question I said, you've got $90 million. Let's just say that it's true. Right? You've got $90 million to make a show, and they had to work within that constraint, or was it, want you to do a show, what's it going to cost?
Mm-hmm.
And then they come up with a number. Well, we think we can do it for about $100 million.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, if Kenobi was $200 million, it wouldn't have been made. Also, in my opinion, Kenobi was made for whatever they said, 90 million, whatever they're claiming.
Yeah.
And then it had way more views than any of it, which makes Kenobi the actual clear success story in this failure narrative that's been concocted.
Yeah. I don't think it was constrained by its budget is what I want. I'm trying to just figure it out.
Kenobi wasn't limited by its story. It was limited by the time it had to execute the production of the story.
Yeah. And it didn't have just a blank checkbook. A lot of folks are thinking, well, it should have. Right. It should have had a blank checkbook because it was so important that they should have said more. Right.
It should have been a film. The actual legitimate argument to me is it should have been a film, and it wasn't. Therefore, you got this very tiny, quote, personal story. And in reality, Star Wars fans don't want tiny personal stories.
Well, yeah. Well, that's part of it. Yeah. Well, plus just. Yeah, there's so much, right? When you talk about the writing, who the writers were, what they wanted to do. Consider that one of the executive producers on it was Ewan McGregor himself, right? Like, the people involved in it didn't set out to do a low budget, half baked show. Right. They thought what they were doing was fantastic, and there may be a disconnect. This goes back to another discussion I want to have in a bit, but a disconnect between the people making the content and the people consuming the content, maybe not understanding each other.
Well, I think it's actually like, yeah, it could be, but I also think that it's how small can we go? I don't, with Star Wars, they don't know what they can get away with. And there's times when they have to like see how small can we make the show. And in my opinion, when we get back to the film time, when films start coming out all the time, then it becomes more appropriate and even okay for Kenobi to be that size. But when we're not getting any movies, that's when this becomes an issue, like to us, because our fandom quality of life in the media that we're consuming, it drops down drastically. But when you also have films hitting, then it becomes a different story. But I think at the baseline, the problem with Kenobi is it was never going to live up to a film. People wanted a film. People wanted everything about it to be a film, and it's a Disney Plus show. And we kind of been spoiled. I'm not saying, I don't know if we should be. I don't know if we pay enough or not. I have no idea. But it's just like, it's not really, it's not a movie. It's a TV show. And then when the show looks and feels and is a TV show, people are like, oh, why aren't you this different animal? And
Right.
and that's where like the moment we learned it was a TV show instead of a movie, I was like, my expectations went from like a 10 and hope down to like a 7. I was like,
that's
okay.
what I think fandoms as a whole. Marvel's going through similar pains. Right? They're going through a lot of pains as well. Marvel fans are less than thrilled with what they're getting, and they're whole different situations. I'm not comparing them that way, but I think the expectation when you're coming off of these big budget blockbuster movies, that's your franchise.
Yeah,
that's your franchise. Big budget blockbuster movies, Star Wars, Marvel, right? That's your franchise. When you scale that down all of a sudden to a TV show, whether it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right, that a lot of people didn't watch and didn't like, or if it's Loki season 2 or whatever, I don't know, but it's a different scale. It's a different proposition. It's a different medium. It's a different format. So sometimes we get in our minds the blockbuster movie. I want to see Star Wars, and Star Wars is
going from a trilogy of Obi-Wan Kenobi films conceptually down to 6 episodes of a Disney Plus show really tells us everything that we need to know about why it was made, that it even happened was just like, okay, we got Ewan, we can't throw that away. That's all. That's at the end of the day kind of what it is. And I like I mean, but at the same time, would I rather not have it? I'll take that over not having it personally.
That's the other side of that, right? Like, what happens if you didn't get it at all? Would you have been happier without it existing?
Because in that case, you should be happy with all of the stuff you haven't been getting from Lucasfilm over the last 5 years, and I know you're not. So
the 17 years between, the original trilogy and the prequels, you should have been just beside yourself, thrilled with the state of Star Wars.
Right.
So that last question, if I can borrow another couple minutes for me, is I watched TRB do the Resistance broadcast. They did a state of Star Wars, whatever, for this time period.
The mix of canon.
If you were to say what you think the state of Star Wars is as a franchise, you think it's healthy? It's got a cold. It's got the COVID. Or it's on life support. It's in coma. What do you think?
It's taken them so long to make a Star Wars movie that fans forgot that they make movies, and they're treating the television shows like they're films. It's not in a bad state because there is no state. You're getting bonus TV shows and you're acting like it's films when it's not. So is it on life support? I don't know. It's not even doing anything. It hasn't done anything since we're talking about the films. It's done anything since 2019, and there's nothing filming today. So if you wanted to say it's dead, you could, but also that would be ridiculous because they're resting it, and they're resting it while still capitalizing on the, what do you want to call it? The choir in the church, the devotees, who will watch and buy anything with the logo on it, or will try it at least. And like, so it's it's easy to go, God, everything's so messed up and broken because these movies, they suck. But they're not even making movies. Like there's no movies for years. So I mean, you could call it a quiet time if you want to, but we also know with the amount of movies that are in development at this moment, there's quite a few. There's at least about 6 that I know of. And it's like, so when you get down to it, I think it would be a very immature observation to make about it, because you're not looking at like what is down the pipeline. And then if you're going to play to the cynicism and you actually believe it, then you're a little bit stupid, because what's going to happen is Kathleen Kennedy was not supposed to be making Star Wars movies, and she didn't. She's not in trouble for that.
Right.
And then she made Indiana Jones. And unless there's something we don't know about with Indiana Jones and when it came out and how it came out that she objected to, which I don't think there is, that's a true failure. And Solo was years ago, true failure, but there was a win after, so she kind of negates that for them. But Indiana Jones is a failure, and the real failures of Kathleen Kennedy begin in 2023 because there was no X-Wing movie coming out right now. The Rogue Squadron didn't happen. So that next Star Wars movie that does come out, if that thing fails, then you definitely could go life support. If you say life support at this moment right now, though, I think no. I think it's just
what would you say? What would you say? Is a franchise all in? What do you think? It's healthy. Well, I mean, it needs a couple of workouts or what?
I don't think it's so. Like, number one, in terms of like the Force Awakens era, is never going to come back. That is like. We thought we thought Daddy was dead and he came home from the war on that one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you're never going to get that moment back.
Right.
And do I think they're going to come back making $1 billion? I don't. I think they're going to come back as probably $400 to $700 million films at first. And I think if they get a good series going with interest, then they do return to the $1 billion like films.
And if they can manage budgets and manage profitability, they're fine.
And Indiana Jones makes me go, can they? I mean, and that's a fair question. Like, I mean, like, stuff like that. But but in all of the years of like, everybody's like, oh, it's dead, Kathleen Kennedy, this and that. It's like, that's coming though. It definitely is. It's undeniably coming. Like, if the next Star Wars movie is a huge bomb. And like, the thing about it is, like, I feel like the Rey film is a $500 million idea. Just the idea, just bringing Rey back. I think you get between $400 and $500 million just for doing it. But on that Rey film, there has to be a premise to the Rey film. Right now, the only thing we know is Rey trains dark-skinned people the Force. That's not a premise to a movie. That's just all we know. And that's what it sounds like. But what's the angle? So I think if there's a really good idea, and that idea and that angle is good, then I think that we could have like a big hit, because the other side of all of this too is the Rey audience, the audience who loves Rey, they're still the ones going to the movies. The old people, you go to the movies. I'm the only like 40-year-old guy in the theater. Everybody is like not, you know what I mean? They're not going to movies now, but the Rey audience is. Yeah. And that's, so I think there might be a huge disconnect here between discourse on the internet with all of us old guys and then the actual reality of because I would have thought Indiana Jones would have been at least a $600-700 million movie. Like, that's what I thought it would probably do. Yeah. But it didn't. And because old people don't get out of the house right now.
Well, I'll talk about it a little bit, but I want to get your opinion before you go. Okay. Ahsoka season 2. There were things that come out and said it's confirmed, it's happening, and they're moving it to London.
I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, me neither.
It doesn't compute. It would require to lose the crew, lose some of the cast, some of the crew, and then go to a different place. It would have to be like, we're really afraid about this Dave Filoni guy and a British crew. That's the only like angle I could even see to make any kind of sense. Yeah. And then obviously the assumption would be, because they're going to be filming the movie there, they want to use all of the same stuff and like reuse. But you know what? Nah, these people aren't that smart. They usually just like ship it back and forth, the stuff back and forth, like stuff from LA that they want. They'll just ship it to the UK. So it doesn't make sense. By every account of everything that when I looked into it for 5 minutes, everything is the next Mando season.
Yep.
And so it doesn't make any sense to me that it would be confirmed and that it would be happening. People on British crews that I've spoken to have not heard anything like that at all about any of that. In fact, it was more like Acolyte season 2 talk as opposed to anything like that. So once again, it's not impossible. So I'm not saying I know everything, because I don't. But if you were asking me to like bet on it, high confidence, confident, or low confidence, it's in the low confidence for sure category, 100%.
The red flag for me is moving to London. I'm like, they're not doing it. They're not doing it.
The other red flag for me was it going around the Disney Plus Day circles recently too. So it's like, you know what I mean? Remember, it's I mean, if it happened, I mean, that would be neat. But from my understanding, the Dave Filoni movie is going to be a high budget version of what we've been getting on Disney Plus, and that actually probably just means a really good use of the volume and with practical sets on at the same time. I don't think they're going to go and try and reinvent the wheel, and why send him all the way out there to give him a different volume?
It doesn't make sense.
It's the same thing.
No, it makes sense. Yeah. And the writer strike is still not finished. So we've still got to get things back on some sort of schedule. They've got to rejigger everything, come up with, how things line up. I don't think that's happened. So do I think they're going to make a season 2 and that they're probably favorable of a season 2? Sure. Yeah. Do I think it's already greenlit and they've decided to move it to London? Not at all. I don't believe that at all. So hey, I've held you like 15 minutes over.
Okay.
I really appreciate it, Jason.
Anytime, dude. Oh, yeah. Does my camera look any different or play any better now?
It looks good.
Chance? Does it
look?
Okay. Yeah, I got to get a new computer, and today, like, this is all working great. It's nice.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. I noticed when you used it, yesterday was the first time?
Probably. Yeah,
it looks great. Looks great. Thank you, my friend.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you.
Be nice to Santa. Be nice to him.
Okay. Hey, touch basing. Go back. Meg in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. Meg said Star Wars is in a bad state. Anyone who thinks otherwise is deluding themselves. And maybe I'm delusional, because I think that Jason made a couple of good points, and they go along with what I think as well. Look, the prequels divided the fandom. The sequels divided the fandom. Maybe you could say more. I'm not sure. I have my own memories of the prequels, and that to me is what it is. Hold on a second. I've got the Sketchcraft in my chat. Just a second. There we go. The prequels divided the fandom. The sequels divided the fandom. And the fandom, and I heard Meg's comment on her own stream, interest in Star Wars is at a low. Jason's point about movies and periods between movies. What was the fandom's interest in movies between the original trilogy and the prequels? How much content was being consumed by the fans between the original trilogy and the prequels? Likewise, in the decade between the prequels and the sequels in the Disney era, how much content was being consumed? I don't know. We'll get a true feeling until the next movies come out. And when they come out, then we can have the discussion. But there's a lot more to it than that too, because I think the movie industry as a whole may be shifting as we've seen the streaming content come up. And Rob, thank you so much for coming on the stream. I appreciate it.
Hey, what's up, Sam?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. I really appreciate you coming in. It's great.
Well, you're twice a year. You're dumb enough to let me on, and you learn your lesson, right?
Lapse of judgment. Just shows
lapse of judgment. That's right.
Yeah. Meg says compare pre-Mando 2 hype to now, and I get it. Like when it comes to these live action series, Marvel's going through the same problem. but it's an entirely different situation there, I would say.
Has anybody been more critical about Star Wars TV within our circle of responsible friends than me, Santa? Let's be honest, right? Like I think
No.
I've been at the tip of the spear, right? So
Yes.
let me explain something. In a way, Meg is right, and in a way, Meg is wrong. And here's something I've learned about Star Wars fans. One good movie trailer solves all your problems. That's it.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how bad the movie, if that Star Wars trailer kicks off, all the hype comes back. Right now, the fatigue is pointless Disney Plus shows. Disney Plus at this point has gone from being a contender to Netflix and HBO to, at this point, they are right where direct to DVD was with the Lion King sequels and the Aladdin sequels of the early 2000s. That's what it is. You know, and that doesn't have to always be that way. That's just where it is right now. They've done that to themselves. They've ABC'd, right? The channel ABC TV'd, Disney Channel XD'd their brand, their channel to mediocrity.
Right.
And having worked with a little bit with licensing, I know how this happens. I know when you put down something that's cool, and then notes come back, and it chips away, and it chips away, and it chips away. And at the end of the day, you're like, we don't even have a Star Wars thing now. We just don't, you know. And hardcore fans, they're gonna pretty much love everything, short of like a total disaster. And I don't know what that looks like to hardcore fans anymore, because in our days, Santa, I mean, you're a little bit older than me, so you saw the Star Wars holiday special. I mean, had that Star Wars holiday special come out today, with that kind of backlash,
oh my gosh,
you would think the next Star Wars movie would be dead in the water, right?
Yeah,
right.
100%. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
that's how bad it was. I mean, my uncles used to talk about it. My friend who passed away, he would be about your age, about 11 years older than me. So he was 11 when it came out. You know, he was right there, totally disappointed in that holiday special. You know, like ruined Star Wars for him. And look, 1977. 78 to 80 is a lifetime for a kid in the 70s, especially with how slow everything moved, right? You weren't getting, I mean, you know, when Welcome Back Kotter is the biggest thing on TV, you know. So yeah, it's in the doldrums right now, but at the same time, all you need is one kick-ass trailer and the whole internet. Well, you'll be hearing. Remember when they used to talk about YouTube views for trailers? Remember the days of Endgame and Infinity War?
Yeah. And then there's ratioing. Yeah.
That's
good
fun.
So
you'll hear about 70 million views in 60 hours, and this must mean that, you know, they do all this weird math that's going to generate how.
Yeah. So. And this one got ratioed. It had more downs than ups, or it had 10 times more downs than this other one. That means people are hate watching it or whatever. Right. There's all kind of nonsense. We go back to also, you mentioned the holiday special, the Ewok movies, or, you know, there's a lot of nostalgia. Right? You go back to those are two very different things, right? The holiday special is so bad that people watch it because it's
the first Star Wars since Star Wars.
Well, true.
Right. That's the shocker for folks, because they were expecting Star Wars on TV. And I think that's very similar to what we expect today, right?
And it was bad. The holiday special was not Star Wars for TV. The holiday special was a what are they? Like the Carol Burnett show, or what are those
the variety shows.
Show. It was a variety show for Star Wars. That's what it was.
Masquerading as Star Wars.
Exactly. And then of course you had Star Wars and Muppets. You had they were putting them in all the shows, right? Mark Hamill
was of age for the Endor movie, the Ewok adventure film, and to me, even at 5, 6, 7 years old, whenever that came out, it was just confirmation for my uncles, who were the uber Star Wars nerd geeks of their day. It was just confirmation that after Return of the Jedi, that Lucas went full kiddie.
Yeah.
With Star Wars. Not in general, because Temple of Doom had come out around that time, but just that Star Wars had turned into a kid's thing.
I'm going to give you another example. In The Phantom Menace is really high on my list for the prequels. Right? I kind of go back and forth between
the best of the prequels.
I think so. I mean, I go back and forth. So sometimes I think Revenge of the Sith is better. Sometimes I think Phantom Menace. But Phantom Menace, when you mentioned it goes all in for the kids, when he puts Tom and Jerry, direct Tom and Jerry references in there, right? Like Jar Jar sticking his tongue out and then Qui-Gon catching it. That's Tom and Jerry. And all it didn't do is go back and go when he let go, right? That's the only thing it was missing.
Well, he does shake it off, so in some way, and in some way they do that gag at the dinner table.
Exactly, exactly. I'm like, that's Tom and Jerry right there. That's kids. He did a Tom and Jerry bit, and then later on, and I know most of the today's age folks and the prequel lovers are way too young to get the reference. But the pit droids were the Three Stooges, and they're doing the poke in the eye, and they're doing the whole thing. Right in the pit droids, and you're like, "That's Three Stooges comedy right there." He didn't even hide it; it's right in front of your face. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible."
Yeah, but the kids that had grown up with Jedi were I'm not saying everyone was welcoming of that because their complaints were rabid. I think the complaints went from George Lucas R-worded my childhood, which I always hated. I hated that at the time. To hey, it's a C+. I think was the best I could get out of my non-Star Wars. My Star Wars friends loved it. And then we'd read the book and be expanded, and we'd all go, well, it's going to go here. And I chalked it up to, well, Lucas is a little rusty. He'll work it out by the next one. And, that didn't happen.
And then that didn't happen. Yeah. Well,
do not forget, Return of the Jedi has a Tarzan yell. It bugged the hell out of me as a little kid. I never liked Tarzan. Like, I kind of like the animation in the Disney one, but I could care less for Tarzan. Like,
I saw the comment about him being goofy. Yes, he's goofy, but that's a Tom and Jerry bit at the dinner table. And I get Jar Jar is goofy. He has the walk of goofy. He's kind of got the
Joel Schumacher's Batman was supposed to have nipples. It doesn't mean it worked. Like I'm not saying it was a mistake. Like it inadvertently did that. It was intentional. It just didn't work. And I've largely contended that if you're gonna go that kind of kiddie, the disconnect is that Jar Jar looks realistic. Had Jar Jar been a Muppet, had they all been felt puppets, like there's one race of creatures, right? Because there's test footage in the beginning, the making of the Phantom Menace, where they do have a felt puppet Jar Jar. They're driving in the back of a truck. And they're doing like a little test just to kind of get an idea of what and I'm like, if these things were little puppets, it would be funnier when they get exploded or kicked around in the way that Labyrinth, right? When you kick a puppet, it's funny. And I'm like, I just feel like they probably should have been puppets and not realistic creatures.
You can see the felt arms just flying. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be funny. Like when they get sucked into an engine and spat back out. Like if I don't like the movie The Great Muppet Caper, I like elements of it.
Yeah.
But it never gets tired of me when in the movie the Muppets get thrown out of a moving vehicle and they just ragdoll across the street.
Yeah.
It never gets old.
Well, you mentioned something else about that. That kicked back in my head about the Ewok movie, the Battle for Endor. There's a couple of things. The big monster in that doesn't stand up, right? It's obviously Yeah, it's bad
compared to the Rancor. The Rancor was literally a hand puppet.
Exactly. And then they use a blaster, like a phaser, like a Star Trek phaser. He shoots there's a boulder in front of the cave entrance, and they shoot a blaster at it, and it shoots just a solid beam, and it like heats up the rock. Like watch Star Trek. That's exactly what it does. The rock turns red and then it blasts into a million pieces. That's Star Trek, and it's right there in Star Wars. Could you imagine Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett? Boba Fett takes his blaster out and he fires it. And it's a laser beam that goes out and something heats up and then explodes in today's world. Right? Could you imagine? That's not how blasters work. That's not how Star Wars works. What are you doing?
I mean, but again, you're also talking about a series in which I'm expected to believe they just walk back from city to Jabba's palace. And I mean, I said this the night where it came out, I was like, are they walking? And is this guy really walking? And Jason's like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, no, this matters. Like this is a problem because it's weird. It's like, one, he could drive into town. He's got ships. He's got a rocket pad. He's really everyone. And then the funniest part, I think it dawned on people when you see Black Chrysanthemum just run back into town. You know, you're like, that's ridiculous. That's a 900-pound dude in fur in 800-degree weather. You know, and he's black, and we all know, like, a steering wheel gets 1,000 degrees in the heat, right? Like, come on, man. You know, like, take a ship.
Look,
like,
he's the people, Damio. He's of the people. He's got to be amongst the people. But yeah,
I know.
We digress.
I know what you mean, though. Like at the time in the 80s, I think what might be lost upon some of the younger viewers was that every universe had kind of their own little like stylistic rules. So proton packs had a certain sound and behavior. Lightsabers had a certain sound. Star Wars blasters were more like supersized World War II weapons and pistols. And Star Trek was, you know, phasery, right? Or
right.
What's the word? Like TV-ish. That, you know, like there's a little thing and then you wait. And you know, it would take its time. It's not very immediate.
Right.
So when that happens, you start going, what is that? And what that is a lack of attention to detail.
Sure.
And you've gotten used to consistency. And when it's not there, whether it's right now, you're seeing it with Marvel or with, you know, Star Wars, the two big ones. And you're like, that's not the way it was the last time I saw it. What's with that? You know, that's hard. That's hard to impress upon people, man. Like
it really is.
I know it's like, you don't want to be like, hey, I'm the guy on set who's got to make sure everything's just right. But I think that's the difference between the first Lord of the Rings trilogy and the second.
Oh,
some were really, I mean, my wife leaves those making of things on repeat. And then I put on The Hobbit and I'm like, everything out the door, right? All the rules you established in the first one, everything out the door with the second. So
I saw the Hobbit trilogy on HBO Max. I think it's on there. And I was like, oh, let me just watch this again. I didn't make it all the way through the first movie. I was just like, I'll just watch it some other time. Like, no thanks. So it's really hard when you talk about the state of Star Wars, right? Like the health. What's the health check of Star Wars today? The merch is very alive. There's tons of Grogu, Mando merch out there. People are still dressing up in Halloween as Mando. There's plenty of interest from people who are going to conventions and things. So from all that perspective, it's doing really well. The toy sales is a whole different story. We're in a whole different era. You can't go back to the 80s. The 80s doesn't exist anymore.
Games sold well.
Yeah, the games are doing well. And not only that, but kids still like who play the game, when they come up to me as Santa and they say, I'd like a Star Wars Lego set. You're like, great. Who's your favorite Star Wars character? I don't know. I just play the games. They're like, okay.
And look, that's not a guarantee, Santa. I mean, I think we live with the generation that grew up with high-end video games now, so they kind of take it for granted. But when the Phantom Menace came out, you know, a year or two later, no one played Battle for Naboo. They played Pod Racer, but they weren't buying I was buying Battle for Naboo, but believe I was the only one. And when Star Wars Obi-Wan comes out, no one buys it. There was this malaise. It wasn't until Knights of the Old Republic comes out that you got video games, Star Wars video games. Really, you know, the Rogue Squadron 1 and 2 did well, but 3 didn't do well. There was fatigue there too. So, so I tend to like, and like I've had to do this. I was telling Jason, you know, and I've said this before on the show. It was, I want to say June or July of 2012. I was in an office with the Star Wars license and shirts weren't selling. And they're like, what can we do? What can we do to make this work? And I just sat there. I'm like, it's not for me, the t-shirt guy, to somehow get millions of Star Wars fans to be engaged with a property that hasn't had a movie out since 2005. And I get 3 Marvel movies a year. The Avengers just came out. We just had Avengers come out. They're not caring because t-shirts are bumper stickers. They're fan appreciation things. It's not the groundswell movement to get everyone riled up. It's
Right.
a reflection of what they need to get a new movie out. They
Yes.
need to reinvigorate and create
Yeah.
the energy. And they
Yeah.
did that with The Force Awakens. I mean, in many ways, The Force Awakens similar to The Phantom Menace in that, you know, it got tons of people excited, did very well at the theaters financially. Everyone loved that first trailer, you know.
Mhm.
And then 2 movies later, and people could say Revenge of the Sith was a great now, but people were done with Revenge of the Sith in 2005, man. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Bill O'Reilly, you're a conservative guy, and I had this
Yeah.
conservative friend. I used to work at a Kinko's at the time, and he drove the van, so he'd leave it on conservative radio. So I'm like, and I go in the van, and I go, you know, why not? Why don't I listen to what these yahoos have to say? And Bill O'Reilly was on. And he's like, I interviewed George Lucas during the first Star Wars movie, and I would like to talk about Star Wars now. And none of his audience cared, you know?
Right.
It was like,
Right.
nobody cares.
Right.
I'm like, you would think these 30-something conservatives listening to this would still want to hear about Star Wars, right?
Well,
like,
look, George pissed a lot of us off, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And like he made a lot of us really mad with the you're either with me or you're opposed, like, or you're my enemy. And that felt too much like putting George Bush's words in Anakin's mouth. And it felt too much like he was portraying George Lucas, or George Lucas put George Bush in a negative stereotype in the show. And he was taking a direct shot. And it made me mad. It made me mad. I look, I still like can't convince me that wasn't intentional. Because they say,
well, I mean, Newt Gunray is Newt Gingrich. I mean, he
Yes.
was on record saying that. You know,
Yes.
he felt he even likened Valorum to Bill Clinton. I mean, that's a one-to-one statement. George Lucas's politics are open for everyone to see, and are very much in Star Wars from day one.
Yeah,
That's not anything to hide. Like,
so
Nixon is the emperor. He's said that on many times.
He
like
has.
that.
He has. And when you talk about the conservatives coming out of Revenge of the Sith, there's some animosity towards George Lucas coming out of that movie. So were conservatives talking about it? Not a lot. Only from a negative standpoint of George Lucas.
There was animosity politically, and from an entertainment perspective, there was green screen fatigue. And the way we have volume fatigue right now, we had green screen fatigue. I mean, every photo, you see a photo behind the scenes from Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, and Return of the Jedi. It's people on set, it's puppets, it's Luke, it's Mark Hamill, you know, like in the mud, or Carrie Fisher on a beach, you know, like in the dunes of Yuma wearing a bikini or something. You see a behind the scenes photo of Revenge of the Sith, it's a wall of green. Like, or on Attack of the Clones, it's a wall of blue. Even on the Phantom Menace, you could see a set.
Yeah.
And that was a sticking point that could not be ignored at the time. People were just tired. You couldn't get excited. Oh, wow, I wonder what useless digital background they're going to put into the film again. And so that is where the volume is. There's just so many parallels that I find fascinating, that fans, they can't reason with it because there's no answer at the end of the day to this, right, Santa? Like with politics, it's just a continual moving, it's a cycle that continually moves forward, right?
Yes.
The question is, you know, what would get everyone excited again? And it's just energy. You have a great trailer. This whole internet, we're going to be talking for weeks nonstop. We're going to analyze that minute-long trailer. It's not, could the TV shows do it? Perhaps, but I'm telling you, the vibe now is people want to go to the theaters and see Star Wars. That's
I 100% agree. And they want to see good Star Wars. Like, you know, the Barbie movie blew up. Why? Because it was a cultural phenomenon, right? People were just, there's an interest in it. It looked like a fun, brainless movie. And so people went and saw it. Great.
You're trying to give it a compliment and swipe at it at the same time. I see what you're doing.
I haven't gone to see it. I'm not going to. I may watch it when, you know, on a streaming service.
You saw Barbie in Toy Story 2 and 3. You had no problem with it.
I'm bracing myself for this Christmas season. Like, I'm bracing myself because Barbie has always been a very high requested item. When a small girl comes up, elementary age girl comes up, there's probably a 80% chance she's going to ask for a Barbie or an American Girl doll. American Girl dolls are $100 plus each. So there's less of that. There's more Barbie. So just Barbie all day long, and LOLs, and goes on and on. But this year, I'm just bracing myself for the Barbie, the wave. Just to,
what if the Oppenheimer figure outsells the Barbie figure? Does that just mess up all the algorithms? Like, you know,
I like that Oppenheimer Lego set, please. Yeah,
comes with the communist pamphlet. You know, and it just no one can figure out how that worked, right? Look, you can't. I when the Barbenheimer thing was happening, and I started noticing it because the Instagram stories were all reposting TikToks, right? I follow normies, scientists, film people, you know. So I'm like, wow, this Barbenheimer. I haven't seen this since the J-Lo thing, right? The melding of two names together to create a new thing. So I'm like, whatever this does, this is not going to be replicated again. And I even said to Jason before it came out, it's probably going to be Warner Brothers' biggest hit of the year. I didn't know it'd be biggest hit of all time, but like that is something that you can't replicate. So good movie helps. Clever, weird, timely marketing can never be duplicated or forced upon people.
Right. Well, you know, I mentioned this before as well. Like after the original trilogy, there was no guarantee you were ever going to get another Star Wars movie ever. You know, 17 years go by before we get another. And it's like when Phantom Menace came out, the buzz was because, oh my gosh, there's Star Wars. Whoever thought this was going to happen again in our lifetimes? I got to go see it. And the prequels picked up a lot of steam from that. The exact same thing happened at the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, because Lucas had multiple times said, I'm done. My story's done. Darth Vader, it's finished. That's it. We're done. And then there were rumors of sequels here and there, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, Star Wars is done. He said so. Then we get Force Awakens, and of course it becomes a cultural phenomenon, right? Of course it gets that kind of traction. Will Star Wars get that again? I doubt it, because there's no promise. There's no implicit belief that there's no more Star Wars coming. People are, of course, there's Star Wars coming, and it'll be the next movie that comes whenever. It's not like I've seen all the Star Wars I'm ever going to get to see in my entire life, and then magically something else comes along. It's not happening again. And so that amount of like pent up pressure isn't there. And these shows, the Disney Plus fatigue, I think is real. I think it's very real. And people are
it doesn't help that Disney Plus is taking something out your pocket every month too.
That's true.
It's not, you gotta combine the amount of content multiplied by the monthly draw from your wallet. Movies aren't drawing things from your wallet monthly for the average person. They're going during holidays, you know, during summer, or the winter, or Memorial Day, or something like that, a few times a year. But every month you're like, why am I in this? What am I? You know, $20, $4 to 20. Everything's a monthly subscription. It weighs on people. So. Yeah.
Well, and then the shows don't meet your expectations, and they're just meh. Some of them the people are just like, no, I'm out.
I firmly believe now. Michelle Melendez put, you guys felt green screen fatigue back then. I'm feeling 3D animation fatigue today. Movies, games, shows, too many computer animated things. I hear you, but I'm not seeing that reflected in the real world. The third highest grossing film of the movie is a 3D animated multiverse film. So like when people tell me multiverse and 3D animation is being overdone, I'm like, no, it's just not being done well by and large. And the majority of the computer generated stuff you see in film and television actually has to do with compositing. You were talking to Jason earlier about the She-Hulk versus Kenobi budgets. And the She-Hulk budget had to do with time. They had a very small amount of time, so they need a lot of people on board and a lot of compositing. I highly recommend the channel Hugo's Desk. It's a offshoot of a magazine that's the only thing close to Cinefex we have now, called Before and Afters. And Hugo's Desk is he's a professional compositor in film today, and then his companion is the author of Before and Afters, and so he's a visual effects journalist. And so they cover the technical aspects of films, particularly compositing and the volume. You can go look at stuff like that, like on the Batman or anything else. And a lot of stuff that looks off has nothing to do with the computers. It has to do with the compositing. The compositing is that's when the lighting doesn't match the CGI. The CGI doesn't match the lighting.
Yeah.
And there's so many backgrounds these days that are CG generated, you can't even tell. There's whole sequences in Black Widow where they're just driving down the streets of Prague and it's 100% CGI animated, but you can't tell. No one ever thought that's a CGI background. But then you watch, let's say, everyone loves Winter Soldier, but at the end of Winter Soldier, it had a giant space helicarrier battle at the end. That, if you remember, everyone hated that helicarrier battle, you know. But I'm like, you know, it's CGI because the helicarrier doesn't exist in real life, like obviously.
Right.
So I just think, you know, if it's something that you enjoy and it's new, then it resonates with people and it doesn't matter. Financially, do you think, Santa, like Pinocchio was a big hit on Netflix? I don't think that would have done much in the theaters financially. If Star Wars did a stop motion movie, would that do well? I think that's something for streaming, you know?
Yeah. A Wallace and Gromit, Star Wars.
Well, they did that on Visions season 2. I loved it. They actually had Aardman do a little pod racing.
They did
with claymation, you know.
And Stephen kind of touches on base a little bit here. It says depends how big the audience needs to be. Imagine audiences in Star Wars level for the new Planet of the Apes, but it's going to be big enough the films do well, and that really ties back to budgets. In the discussion we had about Kenobi only having a $90 million budget, we don't know if that's true or not, but if it is true, it's because that's what they spent. There needs to be more of that kind of course correction on Disney Plus. The complaint about She-Hulk is that it was too expensive, especially for what it was. And you start to look at the budgets for all of the Disney,
and it wasn't enough.
Action.
So two things. One, the budget, it's not enough money to do a full CGI character mocap for 6 hours.
Yeah.
You know, like you need almost $1 billion to do that. So that's where I sat there. I'm like, if she's mocap, I was like, I thought for certain it was going to be a courtroom procedural so they can get around one room.
Yes.
You know, like if she's mostly CGI in the courtroom, then you can have one set, you have the same lighting schemes you can work on a lot, you know, like
look the old 80s TV shows, The Incredible Hulk, right? With Lou Ferrigno. They were formulaic. You knew he was going to become the Hulk, you know, twice every episode.
You knew he was going to wear green socks.
I mean, every episode. But the most of the time he was Bruce Banner, and then he would become the Hulk.
David Banner.
I expected
David Banner.
I expected it to be more like that. Like, has she been just the lawyer in the courtroom, and then say that other comes in and they have their fight and She-Hulk it up for that, but then you go back to just being the lawyer gal, right? Then the CG's limited to the fight sequence, right?
Except that the She-Hulk that people remember is the John Byrne. She's a lawyer and she's like Deadpool, right? This is before Deadpool. She's meta, and so that's the expectation. Again, that's something where I'm like, that is either a 1 hour limited edition film thing on Disney Plus, or you just say that for a movie cameo.
Yeah, because the budget's not going to support it, and that's what they've got to start talking about with
or it's animation, Santa.
There you go. With all the series, they've got to be having these budget discussions. Like it's a direct consumer made for TV show. Let's call it what it is. Right when it's going to.
Hold that 1 second. I just want to say with She-Hulk, there's something no one ever talks about, and I want to bring up is the end credits. It has this fantastic hand-drawn caricature with watercolor art style where it takes a different. And I was like, just do an animated series that looks like that.
Sure.
Like you know what I mean? With all the same actors who voiced it, then you can bring them into live action later. But like that looked that end credits with that art style. I'm like, this would have made an amazing little procedural thing, you know, but it's the weirdest thing, Santa. Disney doesn't value animation. Well, I know that sounds strange, but they don't. The execs don't. They don't value it. Like, and my animation teacher was at Disney in the 80s and early 90s. And so they would just tell you, like, Disney hates animators, you know. Go watch the Sandbox, you know.
Well,
Sorry, the Sweatbox.
why do they keep doing these live action remakes of the animated movies? It's the same. It's annoying. And from that standpoint, I go back to what Michelle said before about the 3D animated stuff. Like the Little Mermaid live action remake is practically unwatchable, not because the actress is a person of color or that they, you know, some of the things they did it. It's because the 3D rendering in there is so obvious and bad, and
it's realistic. It's ridiculous.
It has like no.
Had they remade it, Santa? Had they remade it and it just looked like Frozen, the animation art style of Frozen and Tangled, and they used all the new lighting they did with Moana, and it was CGI, but it was animated style. So you give kids a new way in. I'm all for it. You know what I mean? You still have the 2D original. You can have the 3D remake, remaster, add a new song or two if that's what you want to do. Fine. But adding live action, it's so weird, Santa, because the live action thing was something started in the 90s with 101 Dalmatians as a way to save money.
Yeah.
It was a cost-cutting thing. That was like a B-level. This is covered in the book Disney War. It was seen as a way to save money, but it did so big on home video that they're like, oh, wow. This is, and so now they give them budgets 3 times the size of an animated film ever would to make a realistic one people forget about. It's so weird. But as you were saying, you're getting back to the Disney Plus. What were you saying?
Direct to consumer. It's made for TV series, right? If they get in their mind, we're making a made for TV series. We're making a direct to consumer. Like, you know, the budgets for those direct to DVD kind of sales were nothing like a theatrical release unless it was a bomb, right? Like
it was the TV divisions at the time, Santa. There was a TV division for animation they were the ones animating DuckTales, and they actually got their chance to really push forward on the Goofy movie. So like the Goofy movie, like those guys shot way above their pay. They'd put everything. They're like, finally we get a chance to. So that's why the animation on it's so good. You're like, but it's a Goofy movie. It should not be so good, but it was. But they didn't you know, dwindle those numbers back down and then put them on those DVDs. You know?
Well, when we got direct to consumer releases, they were either made for that, or they were bombed. Like they made a theatrical release movie and it went to a test audience and they said, this sucks. Or like the executives saw it and said, this sucks. We're not releasing that in the theaters. And they would just throw it out on DVD and, you know, you pick it up at the
worse. It diminished the value of the original thing because now you have variants. And the way we have like multiples of like, you know, we got this Cat America, that Cat America, this Cat America. Who knows how many we'll have? Oh my gosh! You don't know which one to latch onto. Pick one, fine. But on the
I can't believe you mentioned
we have
Captain
Simba.
America.
We have Scar has 6 variants as a kid. You know, there's 18 Pumbas, and you're like, they're all lions to me, man. Like, which one are we watching here?
The Captain America one you mentioned, I remember when there was some hype over a Captain America movie, and that thing it didn't ever make it, right? So I couldn't believe you mentioned that. It's like, oh my gosh, I remember back when there was hype in like the nerd world of they're making this Captain America, and you would get some behind the scenes shots of
talking about the one from the 80s with Salinger.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah,
he's wearing like a motorcycle helmet.
Salinger's grandkid. Well, the one from the 70s was the motorcycle helmet. The one in the late 80s was J.D. Salinger's grandkid, and he has plastic ears on the outside of his helmet. Like when he wears it, he has plastic ears, and he literally walks or runs from Canada to L.A. Like, it's a weird movie.
So, but that's, I think the from a consumer standpoint and from the studio standpoint, they need to rethink the direct to consumer is the made for TV stuff, and it needs to have made for TV budgets. It needs to have made for TV expectations. And when you're watching Book of Boba Fett, and it's supposed to be like watching a made for TV action series, it should be like that. The A-Team. If you're watching the A-Team, you know you're watching a TV action series. You're not watching a movie.
Well, this is a slight problem when George went and redid Tatooine, Mos Eisley, and made it super busy with the special editions. Because had he made it super vacant, you could then shoot that Mos Eisley, right, on a lower budget and a scale. You could have smaller little. That's what I thought Mando was going to be. He'd mostly be in a ship. Every now and then you go down to something. You'd have like a, bounty of the week, and maybe there'd be sort of an overlying goal, but it would be more procedural, right? Like they were developing it for TV, and then now it's turned into, in a way, man, I like Doctor Who, but they're trying to like turn it all into like little Doctor Who mini movie series. Like there's a lot of parallel between Doctor Who and where you see, even now that Doctor Who's on Disney Plus, it's hilarious. But like they want these like movie like experiences that go over, 6, 8, 10, 12 episodes with the special blah 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 blah. And it's just like, look, I don't know how much,
The pandemic was a special situation. And everybody's locked in their house. You got one outlet and it's in your house, and that's it. So of course the experience was different, but coming out of the pandemic, now we're in a different, there's a pre-pandemic world and a post-pandemic world. And the post-pandemic world doesn't have the exact same kind of parameters that we had before. Are people going to the movies every Friday to have the big discussion about, did you see that on release night? There's less of an impetus for it. And part of that is because, well, if I wait 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 70 days, whatever it is, it'll be on streaming. I can watch it. I'm already paying for that. Back to what you said about before, right? They're taking money out of my pocket every month anyway. And if I just wait, I'll get kind of the word on the street from the diehards who had to go see it, and then I'll make a decision.
Okay, that is a thought. However, this is not a new thought. I mean, I heard this in the 80s with, my dad used to say, why do we have to go to the theater? We'll just wait till it comes to cable. I'm like, that could be a year from now. We'll just wait. That's not what I didn't care. Then it was when it goes to video. Now we have people who go, I don't need to buy the video game when it comes out. Now I'll wait till it goes on Steam sale, or I'll wait till a year. That isn't the average person. The real thing is, if you get people so excited they don't want to wait.
Right.
That's it.
That's exactly
they want to
right.
see it now. Waiting is like, I want it now. I don't want to wait. When you're cool with waiting, you got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
don't have to go see that concert with Taylor Swift. You just wait till the album comes. Like that's not the point.
You're watching the movie theater. Yeah. Well, you're right. Because like Oppenheimer, I didn't go to see it in the theater. I'll wait for it to come out. Barbie movie, I didn't see it in the theater. I'll wait for it to come out. Even though those were the biggest movies of the summer, I'll just wait. For me, that's fine. And that's holding back the peak from what it was pre-pandemic. Those movies, as big as they were, could have been bigger because now there's a population, and it's going to change from movie to movie based on that hype level, that need to be there on release night. I've got to be there. This is all the buzz. It's the biggest thing of the year. It's the biggest thing of the summer. I want to be part of that experience. I want to share with my friends. And in that case, then, it drives you to the theater. Otherwise, if it's that's a pretty good movie. If you're a big Star Wars fan, you should go see it. Well, you might be like Lewis here, right? It says, well, I'll wait, right? It better have an interesting premise or plot, or I won't check out to see it. Wait for it on Disney Plus. Why not? And that's
nostalgia is not gonna get them there anymore. Right. Nostalgia, like, hey, just because we put a lightsaber turning on the screen isn't gonna get people in the theaters. You're gonna have to create the magic, and that's hard. Making Star Wars at the end of the day is hard. I don't think it's easy at all. I don't think it's easy. I think it's harder the more you do it. I think you're almost better off having like a lucky one shot than you are being consistent over time. Yeah. If it was easy, Lucas would have been scoring an A+ every time. Like, it's just, there's no, it's because it's that amalgamation of things. It's an Americana like smorgasbord that you never know which way to lean. And you can't anticipate what you think people want to see. You have to go with what you want to make. And does that align, with the zeitgeist? It's so hard.
There you go. And this is Rob, you're absolutely perfect on that, because they didn't set out to make a bad Kenobi series, right? They didn't say, hey, we're not going to do this, right? We're going to make a crappy series. They wanted to make something really good. And then
only UV Bowl sets out to make crap because there's a tax incentive. And
it's the same with the movies. Do you think that, I know there's a narrative out there and it's dumb, but there's a narrative out there that Rian Johnson intentionally made a divisive movie. I don't think he did. I think he made the best Star Wars movie he could make, and that he wanted it to be loved. And by all reporting, the folks at Lucasfilm loved it. They were super excited about it. When I saw it, I came out thinking, wow, that was fantastic. I loved it. But the fandom as a whole divided over it. Do you think he intentionally set out to do that? Or do you think when they plan these big budget movies, say Indiana Jones?
Well, with anything Santa, there's no one answer because everything has context. And so was he like, is there a part of you when you make things, there's always a part of you doing different things at any given time. There's rarely, especially people who have layer and depth to their work, the more layer and depth you have, the more in various levels of intention there are at the different phases. I think the first phase for Rian Johnson, having been a fan of his work and I've listened to him talk many times. He used to go on the Slash Film podcast, and he used to mess with David Chen a whole lot. It was hilarious back in the day before he blew up. And what I gather from Rian Johnson is that he writes things that make him smile first. When he reads the script, he's like, does this make me feel right? So he's using his internal barometer first. I think the secondary thing, if you're checking it, like if you're going, okay, does this work, not work? Is this expected or not expected? Have we already seen this? Am I just doing the same thing over? Because if you do the same thing over, then you're accused of doing member berries, right?
Yeah.
And if you do something different, then you're like, you're just trying to be different. So
right.
What's the real issue? And I'm going to tell you what I find, my personal experience with the film. And to me, this goes back to Alien 3. Okay. I'm a big James Cameron fan. So Aliens 2, Aliens, to me, is probably not just my favorite James Cameron film. I think it's the film any big budget Marvel type thing should be looking at in terms of how to achieve a continued story that moves in different directions and the pacing, blah, 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 blah. At the end of that movie, you had characters that you cared about. You had a kid, you had Ripley, you had Hicks, you had a robot that was happy. You cared about these. You get to Aliens 3, what do? They're all dead. And look, that's divisive. That ruins at least 50% of the people who are like, well, why should I care?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can't get past that talking, but no matter how good the film may be on its own, you can't get past that. So how does that tie into The Last Jedi? The Last Jedi had this thing where, to me, Finn stopped running away and defended Rey at the end. He stopped running, picked up that lightsaber and said, I'm going to fight these people. I'm done running. Yeah. And at the beginning of The Last Jedi, he's running again. He didn't learn a lesson. Rian Johnson created a new character, Rose, that has to then teach Finn to not run away. He already learned that lesson. So it's like, you're like, well, now I got to create new characters to teach the characters I already cared about, that already learned lessons, to teach them the lessons that they already learned. That's to me, it's not quite the same as just killing everyone off, but you may as well, because you've just created, it's like creating Rodimus Prime to teach Optimus Prime the lesson Optimus Prime already learned. Like, I don't care about Rodimus Prime. Like, that's the problem.
I'll take a little bit of issue with you on the Finn thing, because the first thing he does when he wakes up is, where's Rey? Right? Like, he's
sure, and then he runs away.
But he wanted, I mean, he was going to escape because he wasn't interested in what was happening there.
Right, he doesn't interested, but he stopped doing that. He
was he going to go
fighting the First Order?
But
he's going to run away from the First Order. Just take off.
Yeah. He wasn't in on the fight. He was in on Rey. Right. His interest was her, And then he wakes up, his interest is still in her, and he's still pursuing her. And it wasn't until the end of the movie when the whole lesson of, don't join, right? DJ saying they're both the same. Both the sides are the same.
Yeah, the new character taught them the thing that the audience already knew.
That changed his perspective to say, now I'm against the First Order. Before that,
he already was against the First Order in The Force Awakens. Though. Like he already makes that decision. That happens when they all see Han Solo get killed.
Yeah.
And so you now have to create new. Look again, like Santa. Like if I were to sit in a room and go, "This is you learn. You have to learn." Right. And so I really feel that if Rian Johnson had continued with the third film, he wouldn't have been making those kinds of decisions again. He would have iterated. He's a guy who seems to iterate pretty well. Yeah. Like, so that's what you instead have is you have a third film that then reacts, and reacting is just a bad idea, man. Because
I think if you'd given Ryan all three movies, you might end up with a better trilogy because, and I wanted to go with Dork Wars, the podcast here. Rian Johnson had no Luke was going to be divisive. When you watch the documentary around making The Last Jedi, he's having to deal with why is Luke there? He can't just be a quitter. He can't just be there because he didn't there's got to be something more. And so he tried to write that into the story. He was handed to him. He was already on the island for 20 years, something like that. So why is he there? How is he there? And how are we going to turn him? And by what you see, I think Ryan and a lot of people kind of miss the perspective on it, is that by the time he appears to Kylo on Crate, he's doing one of the most Jedi things you could ever do, fighting, right? Using his force projection to teach Ben a lesson and to save his friends.
Well, he's giving the galaxy the legend they need to get off their ass.
And
they need a legend. They got a guy who ran away, so you're guilty as charged. So he finally gave them the thing they needed. They gave him the indestructible superhero. If he had shown up physically, he would have just been blown off the map. He couldn't physically. One person can't. The idea can defeat the Empire. The one person can't. Luke Skywalker didn't physically defeat the Death Star. Like he didn't get out
right
with the lightsaber and cut it in half.
When you see the kids playing with the little stick figures, right? They've got all the like AT-ATs lined up, and they've got him standing there with his lightsaber. The kids he's a hero again. And then maybe and I've heard people complain, he was already a hero. You didn't need to make him a hero again. Well, for a new generation, now he's a hero. He's an active
Well, the
hero.
way to take away the hero, though, Santa, was the missed opportunity of not using the plot line from Bloodlines, where it's the only thing that makes sense to me. It's the only thing I've read. It's the best idea that, to me, that's come out of the sequel trilogy. Is the only reason the galaxy would turn their back on Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia was because, hey, they found out they were Darth Vader's kids. And I know Jason goes, it wouldn't matter. No, it matters. It matters.
It matters.
If you found out Jesus was Satan's kid, you know what I mean? Like just verifiable proof, right? Like you'd never hear the end. I mean Jesus, but it would mess with people.
What if you get generationally? Let's just to kind of go off of generationally, we get somebody rising in American politics who's a direct descendant of Adolf Hitler, right? Like that was your great great grandpa. You moved to the United States. Now you want to be president. That's still going to affect your.
Or worse, what if someone who solved all the world's problems, right? Solves global warming, solves free energy, solves healthcare, everything's great. And then you find out they were Adolf Hitler's. You know what I mean? Right. Like they didn't defeat the thing. They were directly related. Now you don't know the context, but the world doesn't get context. It would be the thing that would upset the order, right?
It would.
And allow the creeping fear to come in. I'm throwing out triggering words for Jason, but but
no, you're right.
This is again a failure. I believe in top-down leadership. As a former military guy, you understand this phrase.
I do.
I don't believe the director isn't the highest person. It's the person who puts everything together. So it starts. George Lucas. It's called Lucasfilm. So Lucas wasn't just the director; he was in charge of everything. It wasn't called Kurt's film. It's called Lucasfilm. So whoever's in charge of Lucasfilm is directly responsible for things not coming together. You know,
Well,
like,
the
at
buck
the end of
stops
the day.
here. That I firmly believe in that, and even if you weren't involved in the day-to-day decisions that were made on set, but you're not micromanaging, right? I hate micromanagers as well. But at the end of the day, you hire the people you trust with the skills and competency that you can rely on to do the job
And that's a
for you.
scary. It's a scary thing, Santa. Like
It is.
I've been involved in projects featuring beloved characters, you know, and I luckily I haven't had too many people come at me personally, but I've seen them go after like the directors of those games or the company.
Well, what I've
right?
seen just in my real life is senior managers who have to go talk to the CEO, and they take in the report of their division. Here's what our division's doing, so on and so forth. If there is a flaw in that report is wrong, they have to, the poop, kind of rolls downhill, right? The accountability for that report being wrong will often make that leader a micromanager, making the life terrible for their subordinates, or it will cause them to become just a workaholic where they will do the work. They don't trust the report. And so when the report comes up, then they go back and they rerun it, or they send it down to have somebody else do it. And it undermines the work of the person who did the first part of it, right? So you work hard, you create the report to the best of your ability, and you hand it up, and they say, well, we don't really trust that what you did is right. We're going to have this other person do it, or I'm going to go do it myself. It'll undervalue you. And if you're incompetent, you need to be let go. If you're in a wrong job. But
Right.
so what I kind of get to is like, if the CEO can't trust their subordinates can't trust theirs. It goes to what you're saying about the person at the bottom of the chain needs to be completely competent so that people trust. And if something goes wrong, the leader at the top needs to take that accountability for it and say, my bad.
Yeah, they have to take ownership. I mean, I do credit
to.
Bob Iger for blaming himself for the Solo thing, right?
I think that's what
when
needs
Indiana
to happen.
Jones doesn't do well, where's Kathleen Kennedy saying, well, we missed the mark on that one? Doesn't happen.
That's so I'm not
Radio
a Kathleen
silence.
Kennedy basher, right? I'm not a Kathleen Kennedy basher. I'm also not just like a shill who says everything she does is great. I think that she needs to say the buck stops here, and go back to Solo. Why did that budget explode? She has to take accountability for it, because at some point she didn't have a check and balance in the way, or she hired the wrong people, or why didn't Indiana Jones perform? She needs to say, I'm going to take the accountability because something along the way didn't go well. And
they can't say those things because they have stocks, and stocks would drop.
I know.
Like that's at the end of the day. We all know how that works. And Will Morris says he doesn't really think Ryan cared. To be fair, most stuff in Star Wars ends up being divisive. I totally disagree with you. And just on the fact that any director that writes their own material, sees it through production, has to get up every day at 4 a.m. till midnight, 2 a.m., see through editing, promote. But no, they care. They care. Yeah. You may not have adjusted to it. You may not have agreed with it, but they care. Yeah. Every director. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I think Ian McGregor cared.
Yeah.
I think that Kenobi, the series, he cares. He cared, and he wanted it to be fantastic. He wanted fans to love it. But everything they did in that show, as him as a producer of the show, and all the writers, all the actors, all the people working on it wanted it to be absolutely fantastic. Did it land for everyone? No. And are there reasons? Sure. And there has to be some analysis that happens after the fact to say why, how, and what can we do to make it better. And that's where I think the feedback from fandom, hopefully they hear it, that people are unhappy, even though a lot of that feedback comes from a disingenuous kind of place out of bad actors. You still know, okay, there was something we could have done better, right? We could have done better, and let's work to be better.
Well, let me give you an example of this. This is a real world example of this. Yeah. Margot Robbie produced Birds of Prey with her company. Was it Lucky Chap or something like that, right? So she produced that, spearheaded it, passion project. hit like a fart in the wind. Right, I love Harley Quinn, but it did not a good movie. Has Ewan McGregor in it. Was looking forward. Always wanted to see Black Mass. Did not work.
Yeah.
She ended up producing Barbie. Got Greta Gerwig on board, and I believe whatever she figured out what did and didn't work behind the scenes on one production and applied what did work to the next big hit.
Yeah.
You know, and so like, you know, so when I say, do I want more Kenobi? No, I don't want more of that Kenobi. But if they're willing to learn, right, behind the scenes what did and did not work and address it, then absolutely. And I think one of the problems is I was telling Jason that the editor for Kenobi, Kelly Dixon, was on the Roger Deakins podcast recently. So she edited Kenobi, one of two people, and then she also was on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think was more. I can't remember the exact number. But she was saying that even though she's worked on things like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, things that were producer driven, she says that Kenobi, Star Wars, her start with Kenobi and Falcon were director driven. And then she also made a side comment that directors seem to get really excited when they're able to say, instead of doing a movie, they can do a 6-hour version of a movie. And that's the problem. TV is not a 6-hour version of a movie. We've all felt like these felt like really long films that don't give you the punch that a film would have. And go back to Aliens. Although I love a lot of the director's cut stuff, I stand by the theatrical release. The theatrical release of Alien 2 is the one that punches. It punches hard, way above its fucking weight. And when you add another 40 minutes to it, it doesn't have the same immediacy.
Well, I think of George Lucas as well, and go back to the prequels, right? Like that's a passion project. The prequels were a passion project for George Lucas, and everybody's aware of what happened with Jar Jar Binks and how it seemed to sap a lot of his soul out of him when people took Jar Jar negatively. And over time, Jar Jar's kind of gained some appeal from nostalgia, people who grew up and they were the right age at the right time. But he course corrected. Coming out of Phantom Menace, he course corrected. He took, because he said Jar Jar was key to this whole thing working, and that's led to a lot of the Darth Jar Jar.
Such a ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a fun.
Nobody
thing, though,
was
right?
thinking,
It's
I can't wait
fun.
to find out about the Clone Wars and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, but this amphibian Muppet looking dude is the key. The biggest mistake with the Phantom Menace was he wanted to do a CGI organic character, not just a robotic one.
That's
if he was going to do.
Yeah.
The problem was he did too many things. He could have done all the droids, no problem, really. I say no problem, and John Powell wants to kill me, but you know what I mean. Relatively speaking, metal things sell better on screen than organic. They could have done one organic thing, and the organic thing was Yoda. Yoda could have been their one organic character, fully digital, and that would have been.
I hate that.
Look, but they did it anyway. But he's digital anyway in 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So if you're going to, instead of scaling it up, right, where you have Yoda and CGI puppets and the problem is too many things. Remember, they went from the average visual effects shot for a film prior to the Phantom Menace for a big movie was 400. Most had 100 visual effects shots. The big ones had 400. The Phantom Menace had 1,000. And it goes up. And you could just see that scene in the beginning when Lucas is highlighting things on the storyboard, yellow, this is digital and that's digital, and you can see John Powell just like his hand on the side of his face, he's got the Home Alone face. You go watch it. It is hilarious. So had they put everything in there, and then obviously, would it have been the definitive CGI Yoda? No, but if you replace Qui-Gon, there's many problems with that thing, but that's where I would have put the bet. I would have had human bad guys and robots and all that stuff, and human Jedi and less CGI characters, because there just isn't. There's only so many resources you can develop. And remember, in the Phantom Menace, the Nemodians were supposed to be CGI too. They were supposed to look exactly like the battle droids, thin, like little gray aliens covered in like gold.
Yeah.
And there's no time. So they throw in these puppets with these racist accents. And I got to tell you, man, it's the most that is the one thing the Phantom Menace gets no pass on for me. That is the worst. I don't know how you get away with that, you know. And I keep saying to bring it back to Acolyte, because I know you got to go, but to bring it back to Acolyte, what do you do with the Nemodians? No one's talking about this. Like,
I saw your comment in the chat.
Who's got the balls to do that? Do they get the AI to do it? You know what I mean? Like, does Michael Bay, is he willing to do that? Like, I mean, who's willing?
Is that legal?
Does Andy Serkis go? No one cares. You know.
Well, just to tie that in, it's one of the things that I believe sucked the soul out of George. Is he is not a racist bigot kind of guy. In his heart, he's a liberal progressive guy,
right?
But he's also an old guy who carries certain things. I am too. I'm an old guy, and sometimes I say things that I probably shouldn't say because it's not politically correct for the times, and it hasn't evolved with the times. And a lot of my Santa Claus friends fall into the same category. Many have gotten fired from jobs because they say something that they think's funny, was funny when we grew up, not so funny anymore. So that got George in being called a racist for that, I think hurt him. And then when he did Red Tails, and Red Tails got a lot of racist feedback, like accusations coming out of it.
It was a cartoon movie that was pretending to be a serious film, and that's
well, and he was called, but you know, but let's say this is a racist movie, and he's like, he is in his heart not,
right?
But that kind of feedback is tough, right?
Well, I think the unfair one, the Nemodians, is fair. The Jar Jar one is 50-50. You know what I mean? Because we all know, you know, Ahmed, like that's his whatever.
Yeah.
The one that I think is unfair is when they started going, the name Camino is racist against Mexicans. And I'm like, the fuck out of here with that shit. You know, the fact that you even applying Mexicans to Caminos is racist, you fucking asshole. Like no one, sorry, I didn't mean to curse, but it's just like, that was where I was like, there's something else going on here. This is before the internet, right? Like really there was the talkbacks where a lot of this stuff originated from.
Yeah.
But look, as a fan, none of that really affects box office. What affects box office is energy.
Yes.
And so that's what people are like, did I have a great time? Yes. I want to go see it again. I don't care what people say. And so like that's basically it, for good or for bad. That's how Fast and Furious movies keep making money, right? Like they shouldn't, but they do.
There's two keys that I heard years ago, and it's largely true. It's the two C's. It's cool or it's cute. Those will sell. Cool and cute sells all day. I'll add.
I made my living off it. I literally make my living off making things cool or cute. I'll add, like highbrow, that ain't me. I mean, I love Princess Mononoke. I'm not the qualified person to make it. And I don't think Dave Filoni is either. And it bugs me when I watch artists try to do things that I'm like, you don't have that skill set. We all love it. I'm a fan of it. But we ain't the ones, you know. We ain't the ones. Like,
well, I'm going to add a third C to it, and it's compelling, and maybe it's C squared. Compelling characters, compelling story. So if it's cool, it's cute, it's got a compelling story or characters.
Classic Pixar.
Then you'll succeed every time.
Yeah.
So if they want the Rey movie to do well, they need. We're already divided on: is Rey cool? Is she cute? Well, Daisy Ridley.
Look, if she's doing, remember, if she does something cool in the trailer, that'll, you know,
that's
if
true.
the movie's called Rey, we're all up S Creek. You know what I mean?
Like the backflip
do not
over
call the movie Rey.
The backflip over Kylo's tide.
Right.
That was
everyone loved
cool.
it.
Right. That's
Everyone
cool.
Thought
But so if it's got coolness factor to it, it's got a compelling story, then you've got halfway there, right? For me, it's, you know, C squared at the end. C and C squared, right? It's cool, cute, compelling story, compelling characters. If you can get
my thing as an artist, Santa, has always been like, can I get that person who says I would never get that, but that is something I would that version of it I would buy, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would never like that's always been the trick. I'm not into Star Wars, but I would buy that shirt. I'm not into that, but I would buy that game. Like that.
Look,
That's the trick.
I keep wanting to get Hawaiian shirts with Star Wars on it, but I want good guys. We'll go look at all the Hawaiian shirts there for Star Wars, and the vast majority of them have like Darth Vader on them.
You know why?
Stormtroopers on them.
I'll tell you.
Well,
why.
because
Google Trends and Walmart retailers tell everyone what doesn't sell. They don't tell you what could sell. So they'll tell you bad guys and spaceships sell, but good guys don't. And I'm like,
because they're cool.
No,
Yeah.
like, and so what happens is everyone starts doing that, Santa, and then you end up with 12 billion, of the same thing, and you're like, that's not the point of that,
Yeah. But most of my Star Wars T-shirts have like the Death Star on them or Darth Vader on them, or something like that. So it's hard for me to find stuff that has good guys on it. And
also, no likeness rights with the bad guys in masks.
Oh, is that true? Is that true?
They hate
Well, Rob,
that.
as usual, just absolutely great conversation. I thank you so much. I appreciate.
Thanks, Santa.
You're willing to come in, and like we've said, and I heard you guys talk about it. It's the people you like that you haze the most. It's the same. Right? I haze you when you're not on the show here, or you haze me on Jason's show all the time. I consider you a good friend, and I really appreciate you taking your time to have this fantastic conversation with me. It's been great, really great.
I appreciate it, Santa, and I appreciate you and your weird venture online selling cameos to kids. Since there's no malls, you go where the internet is, right? What next, Santa? What next in the is there Santa blockchain? Are we gonna get that yet? Right? Like
I know where it's headed. And the big concern is AI Santa visits.
Oh,
Yep, that's coming.
Yeah, but you can't hug an AI Santa. So
well, virtual Santa, like what my virtual Santa visits. Yeah, that's the concern. Yeah.
Yeah, but that Santa will
That's
probably have
where-
like 18 candy cane fingers. So you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
All right. Well, have a great weekend, Rob. Thank you again.
Too,
And
you
we
too,
look forward
everybody.
to catching you guys. All right. Well, everybody, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, my friends. Merry Christmas. And may the force be with you always.